Okay. My name is Tina Kelley. I'm a freelance writer in the New York City area, and I'm talking tonight with Eli Somer, a clinical psychologist and professor of psychology at the University of Haifa in Israel.
Good evening.
Good evening. Um, First off, do you want to give a definition of MD for the people watching?
Okay, we're talking about MD stands for maladaptive daydreaming. And, well, daydreaming is, of course, a normal mental activity. We all do daydream, drift away, wander in our thoughts. But any behavior can become abnormal if it is excessive or if it causes distress, if it interferes with normal functioning. So maladaptive daydreaming would be defined as an excessive fantasizing that creates distress and or compromises daily functioning, such as work or school or social life.
Mm. And how does having MD affect a person's life all around?
Well, we are, as you may know, we are now making only baby steps in trying to define the problem and its various characteristics. So I would say that, we talked already to many people. We interviewed them and administered questionnaires. There are many ways in which maladaptive affects one's life. Some people find that it's almost it has an addictive property, and they feel compelled to do it even if they don't want to. So some people are losing the actual executive control over this activity. They feel that if they do not engage in maladaptive daydreaming, they actually have what they describe as withdrawal symptoms. And they need to compensate for not having daydream by doing it even more. Similarly, people who have this condition, when at work or at school, would yearn to go back to the solitude and the privacy of their room so they could engage in it. And some people would prefer daydreaming to almost any other activity, including social activity or even family interactions. So it can be extremely incapacitating.
Do you think that MD should be recognized by the medical community as a psychiatric condition?
Well, again, we don't know the exact prevalence of this problem, but even if it is fairly rare, which I don't think it is, because I'll give you in a moment, I'll give you some indication that it probably is fairly common. But even if it is fairly rare, people who are suffering from it deserve help. So, and those I'm talking to, from all over the world, from all corners of the world, tell me that when they talk to their therapists or to their doctors about this condition, they're being dismissed. They're told that there's no such thing, that fantasizing is normal, and they should just stop it. Or, on other occasions, it is misdiagnosed. For example, some people have been diagnosed as being psychotic because they report about very vivid imaginings. And some mental health professionals see that as a psychotic sign of hallucination and some other thought disorder, and prescribe psychiatric medication, which doesn't help, of course.
How would having the condition be recognized help individuals who have it?
Well, once it is recognized, and to do that, we need to engage in research to document the validity of the concept, the stability of this condition, the prevalence of the condition, some of its mechanisms, or what is this condition related to, what are some of the causes. Once it is established, I think it will encourage other researchers to do follow-up research, for example, on treatment. Currently we know nothing about how to help these people. And my impression is that there are many out there who have it. Let me tell you how it was sort of developed, this idea. I first published a small paper in 2002 about maladaptive daydreaming, and I described 6 patients that I had. I am a trauma clinician. I work with survivors of childhood abuse, and at a certain point I realized that a portion of my clientele engage in a lot of daydreaming, and I got interested in that. It seems that for some of them it was a compensatory activity for the hardships they experienced as children. They imagined themselves in other families and so on. So I described that in a small article that had no impact on the scientific community. But slowly, this was 2002. Slowly after that, I began receiving emails from individuals who somehow came across, searched the literature and found this article, telling me, look, it describes exactly what I have. Can you help me? What followed after that is I've been notified that forums have been created for people with maladaptive daydreaming for mutual support. Blogs started appearing, websites describing the condition. Somebody even formulated a Wikipedia entry, not me, about this. And currently, there are forums that have, for example, there's a Yahoo forum on maladaptive daydreaming that has close to 3,000 active members on it. And there are such forums in India, and I get emails and requests for help from all corners of the world. So my impression is that there is a need out there. There is such an entity. It needs to be documented. It needs to be researched, because these people are yearning for help. They are resorting to peer support because there's nobody to help them.
So, other than research, or after you have enough research that describes the condition, what's the mechanism for getting it recognized by the broader medical community?
Well, as I said, we have to conduct some studies that would indicate that there is a measure, for example, to gauge the extent of this disorder, and we are about to submit a paper about that, because we have indication that there's that the measure that we put together is stable with good statistical properties. And we need to be able to describe perhaps what the pathways that lead to this disorder, and to be able to suggest perhaps some ways to treat it. But eventually, if there's enough research out there, I'm sure such important bodies such as the American Psychiatric Association, they have their diagnostic manuals, such as the DSM, now 5th edition, DSM-5. They have the DSM has been the newest edition has been published just last year, and it is a new edition is published only every so often, every few years. So perhaps in one of the next editions of the DSM there will be a work group that will review the literature about this condition and will make a recommendation whether to include it in the diagnostic manual. This will be the major achievement, because once it is in the diagnostic manual, these individuals will be able to point it out to their doctors. The doctors will be able to bill for it or refer to it when they provide help, receive compensation. But in a way, are far away from it. We're now, actually there are only 3 papers out about this condition. One of them I just mentioned is mine. There's one case study, single case study out, and another paper that described sort of the responses and analysis of responses of 90 individuals who answered questions about their condition. That's it. That's not enough.
Yeah. What would you say to people who argue that MD is not a psychiatric condition, but just merely excessive imagination? I know some of the folks who have it have said they've heard these kinds of messages from caregivers.
Yeah. Well, so is having a drink. It's normal, but you can also become an alcoholic if you drink too much. So, of course, daydreaming is a normal activity, but it is abnormal for somebody to be isolated from social life, to be intimidated by real interactions, and to prefer to engage in inner activities, mental activities, at the expense of interactions, socializing, having real relationships. So this condition works in a sort of in a spiral way. For many people, it starts as an escape. They have this capacity to visualize. Some of them are shy to begin with, or have had bad experiences with people, and they find out that they can have very satisfying and relationships that feel very real to them. So it sort of compensates for a need, but it also discourages them from going out to the real world, because it is so much safer to direct and orchestrate your social life inside. So there is a price tag to it. On the short run, it is emotionally satisfying, and it is fun because you can script your own life. But on the long run, it actually incapacitates you, because and people many of them feel quite bad about it, because they realize what a difference and what a gap there is between their idealized self as they play it out and their reality.
Right. What do we know about the causes of maladaptive daydreaming?
So one of the causes would probably be extreme shyness, social phobia, sort of an avoidant personality type that has great yearning to engage in a relationship, but is afraid of criticism or rejection, either based on past experiences or because of the innate anxious personality trait. So you have to have the capacity to do that. For example, I don't have it. I cannot do it. These people report that they have a very powerful sense of presence in this imagined reality. So it almost feels as if they are there. They have emotions, they are gesturing, they can have feelings, they can have tears or joy. It is very real to them. So you have to have this talent. that in itself could be addictive because it sounds fun to do that. But when you couple that with a sense of inadequacy, with the social anxiety, then it becomes doubly more attractive to lead your life in your inner world, in your imagined world. So that would be one path that would lead to maladaptive daydreaming. Another path is probably related to childhood adversities. Again, you have to have this innate capacity to do that. You have to begin with that. And some of the people I talk to tell me that it seems that it runs in their families because they know their father is doing that and their sister is doing that. So
I didn't know.
So it may have also some kind of a genetic inherited component to it. But if you are a neglected child with nobody to take care of you, nobody to love you, then it can be tremendously soothing to imagine yourself being hugged, being loved, being taken care of by an imaginary parental or caretaking figure. If you're being actively abused, physically abused or sexually abused, again, you can create an alternative family. And so this can have, during adverse childhood, some restorative, soothing functions that are very important. And for some of my patients, that's how it started. And there is a third group that are neither shy nor with a history of abuse, who probably have have developed some sort of an addiction to it. Some of these people might be having this isolated case study, single case study I told you about, relates to a person who has had no adverse childhood experiences, and she received a medication that helps people with obsessive compulsive disorder. So the doctor thought that perhaps some of those habitual, repetitive mental behaviors resemble OCD, resemble obsessing, and tried a medication that has helped people with OCD, and this particular individual felt a significantly decreased need to do that, to the point where she's free from maladaptive daydreaming behavior. So, but it's a single case study.
Right.
This is how science begins, with these little discoveries. But that's another pathway. The people who just enjoy this activity so much and have obsessive tendencies, and they just they must repeat it over and over again. So treatment would differ. Treatment for these individuals would differ depending on the pathway that led them to the disorder. So for some, only perhaps simple medication would help. But for others, perhaps what would be required is to build up their self-confidence, their social skills, their ability to trust others. For a third group, we would need to process childhood trauma, so they would not be as fearful of people or fearful of intimacy. And then, for all of these groups, they would have to receive some sort of advice on how to manage and control this habit. Because it will be very similar to changing habits or being detoxified of some kind of an addictive activity.
Mm-hmm.
So these people would have to be given some, for example, some suggestions of how to engage in activities that are incompatible with daydreaming.
Mm-hmm. What kind of activities would those be?
For example, socializing.
Uh-huh.
If you or I would want to imagine right now, it would be very difficult because we are focused on each other and responding to each other.
Mm-hmm.
So for those who are social phobic, we'll have to help them overcome their social phobia first.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But socializing is one example. Focusing on the outside in a meditative, in a sort of a very aware sense, because they sort of lose themselves in their own inner worlds.
Mm-hmm.
So being mindful about the external reality, about an object in the room, about the sensual and visual and tactile properties of, of food or of an activity they are doing would be incompatible with daydreaming.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So these are ideas.
How hopeful are you that this puzzle will be figured out?
I am very hopeful and optimistic that it can be figured out, but right now I'm the only clinician, to the best of my knowledge, who is interested in it. There is a group of I'm collaborating with some other researchers, but they are not psychologists. Some of them are interested in measurement, in psychological measurement. Um, Others have a personal interest about an ability to do research. So there are 2 or 3 individuals who are now collaborating with me, but I don't know that they will dedicate their careers to do that. And currently, I think I'm the only one, to the best of my knowledge, and that's not enough. We will. So hopefully, the first studies that will come out soon, that we are in a very advanced stage of preparation, will generate interest among other researchers. And I must say, I have been recently, I presented a paper about this in a conference in the United States, and at least one researcher that was present in the room where I presented contacted me and wanted to pick up use the instrument and apply it to her research. So this is how it is done. I need to talk about it. I need to produce good data, good research, present it in conference, get it published, and get some other researchers interested.
Is there anything else you'd like to add about the condition?
Well, I think the main thing that is of concern to me is the despair and the suffering out there. My impression is that this is as common as many other psychiatric conditions. Not a week passes without me receiving 1 or 2 emails. This has been going for many years now, many years, from people from all corners of the world, asking for advice, asking for help, asking for referrals. It touches my heart, and it frustrates me to no end that that there's no response, there's no knowledge, not enough knowledge to offer them some help. So I hope that this effort that we're engaged in will inspire others to join us and to do and to conduct more research, so help could be offered to these to many people out there who require it.
Great. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome. So